Hello and welcome to News Central Television. I am Dakmo Adigboye. The top stories at this hour. Now, youths protest high cost of living in Oyo State, Nigeria. APC youths take over Edo State's party secretariat after governorship primaries. African Union slammed for failure to prioritize security in the region. Details in a moment. Some Nigerians have staged a protest to express their displeasure over the high cost of living and harsh economic realities across the country, calling on the government to address the hardship to forestall a state of emergency. The protesters were converged on Mokola Ibadan, carrying placards with various inscriptions and songs of agitation, say they will peacefully move across some major streets in Ibadan. They appeal to all concerned Nigerians to join the solidarity movement as the people cannot continue to endure what they describe as an unbearable pain. Now, the police public relations officer, Oyo State Command, SP Adewale Osifeso, who accompanied the protesters, said the police is focused on guaranteeing safety both for the protesters and other Nigerians to ensure that other people with ulterior motives will not hijack the protest.
Our country is hungry. We just need their intervention. We do not want to fight with them. We are not here to cause any problem. We're just here to tell the government our problems, that they should just look into this for us. That they should please look into the problem of the masses. Help us. Have mercy on us. People are hungry. People are dying daily of hunger. Insecurity is killing people. We just need them to help us. They should just help us. They should just look into our case and be of help to Nigerians. That's just all we need.
Nigerians have the right to hear their opinions. And we cannot say because we are here today, we must not allow every other Nigerians to exercise their constitutional duty. Section 34, 39 and 40 empowers every Nigerian to organize a peaceful assembly and to speak about the economic hardship. On this note, this is not today's own.
Our people have the right to freedom of assembly as it is. But our duty is to ensure that it is not hijacked by unscrupulous elements. And, if caution is not taken, which is why we are here, to ensure that we provide the intelligence and, of course, the physical support to ensure that this...
To discuss this, I'm joined by socio-political technocrat and aviation safety expert, Dr. Dayo Kayode. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Kayode.
Yes, good afternoon, Dako. How are you today?
Very well. All right, now let's talk about, of course, the matters arising right now in Oyo State, Ibadan, where we understand that there has been protest concerning the cost of living, particularly across the country. Your immediate reaction?
Yes, you see, the thing did not start from Oyo State. This thing had been happening in the country in the last 2 weeks, I think, from Adamawa to the north, then now in the southwest, Oyo State. And I can tell you, we are still going to be expecting more, because I have been one of those that have been saying that there is a particular Yoruba proverb that says, "Teba le ewure kan ogiri, o ma yi ojú padà sí ìgbà ilẹ̀ máa mọ̀ pé ewúrẹ́ yẹn ó lẹ́yìn." That is to say, when you are pursuing a goat, then that goat will definitely be running away from you. But when it reaches a roadblock and it cannot go again, it will definitely turn back to pursue you. It's then that you will know that a goat has teeth. Now, Nigerians had been under austerity measure for close to 40 years in this country. And each successive governments have been saying, tighten your belt, tighten your belt. Now the belt cannot be tightened again. People are now saying, listen, we need a list of a new life. You got to let us breathe. Because when you keep on pressing your knee on the neck of the people, at a point in time, they won't be able to breathe again. And all they now want to do is survival. Because everybody wants survival. One way or the other, they want to push you away so that they can survive. And that is exactly what we are seeing. But I can bet you, this is just the beginning of the beginning in this country.
All right, now, but the current administration has actually, pleaded that Nigerians exercise just a little more patience for some of their policies and, of course, actions to materialize. I mean, we've seen in recent days and weeks policies around, strengthening the country's currency and also boosting the economy. What would you say concerning, the position of the current administration concerning their policies?
The question I repeat across to you also is this. If your child is hungry and you say you are preparing jollof rice in the morning, and from that morning, let's say 8 a.m. till about 2 p.m., and you are saying that jollof rice is not yet ready, you will expect the child not to cry for that. We keep on crying. Not until when you give that child what is requesting you. What is requesting from you, it will not stop crying. And the issue is this. Nigerians are saying, listen, we are hungry. And let me quickly tell you this. I, as a person, I have studied this government. And all I could see is that they are trying to be Machiavellian. Machiavellian in the sense that the end justifies the means. They want to continue perpetuating their rule on the people. And the only way they can do that is to steal life out of the people, just like the political bureau of Lenin. You remember that story as regards the healthy chicken, that all you need to do is remove all the feathers alive. If you'll be following us. And that is exactly what we are seeing in this country. Not until when we Nigerians are able to, across this government, scientifically with knowledge, knowing that number one, the first substitute removal had been a fraud. Let them return that thing. But Nigerians forget that fact that DSDP, that is the supply that for the NPC.
Dr.
That's nothing like subsidy needs. So not until when we get that, we'll not be able to know how to approach our agitations scientifically. And it's only when we approach our agitations scientifically that we will be able to achieve our aim and objective.
All right. Now, let's also look at the fact that the current administration, too, has sort of put mechanisms in place. We know that you talked about the subsidy right now, and one of the reasons they gave is that the subsidy regime was empowering a few financially as against, the public, and also the fact that it's not sustainable. And there's also been, echoes from institutions like the IMF, with recommendations as to how Nigeria should run its economy, saying that subsidy should be removed on some key areas so as to allow for the economy to actually thrive on its own. I would like to know your reaction to some of these recommendations by the institutions like the IMF, as a way forward.
Yes, the question you have answered regards the issue of IMF, and I will explain the two to you totally. Now, when it comes to the issue of subsidy, the people that are taking that subsidy, who are they? And the question I want Nigerians to ask is this: NNPC not request for that subsidy based on the quantity of petroleum consumed. That is, subsidy is a function of the volume of petroleum products consumed in the country at a point in time. Now the question is this: what is the volume that we have been consuming in Nigeria? for you to be asking for that. And mark you, there have been allegations that by the time Nigeria consumes maybe 40, for example, 40 liters, some people will go out to inflate it from that 40 to 80. That means we are paying excess of what we are supposed to pay. And let me also refer you to the findings of this investigator in CBN. The new investigation carried out in CBN of recent, that listen, out of the 7 billion dollars, about over 3 billion out of it were fraud. So who are the people collecting that? When you know that these monies are going into private pockets, why don't you take all these people that are putting this money in their pocket? That is about that. Let us come to IMF. IMF and World Bank and all these international organizations, they don't want development for any country in Africa because they know the moment we have enough to eat, enough to drink, and we are comfortable, the more we'll be able to get our freedom. I will give you an example of what happened in Niger Republic. Niger Republic was being given independence, but not given freedom. But you can see what is happening there now. They are getting their freedom one way or the other. So the government that is there is just wanting the international community to give this validation. And how will you get validation? How will you get support?
All right, Dr. Dayo Kayode.
They are colonial.
Dr. Dayo Kayode.
They are colonial.
All right, Dr. Dayo Kayode, I'm sorry, but we might just have to stop here, concerning the interview. Thank you so much for your time on the news. Socio-political technocrat and aviation safety expert. Once again, Dr. Dayo Kayode, thank you so much. All right, now let's move to political matters now, where more drama continues to unfold in Edo State branch of the All Progressives Congress, APC, as the youth arm of the party has not taken over party secretariat building in Benin City, the Edo State capital. This follows the confusion that came after the party's primaries, where factions of the party announced different winners of the primaries. We are now joined by News Central's Bernard Akede, who is in Benin City and has the following story. Bernard, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Dapo.
All right, now, what's the current situation with the APC State Secretariat in Benin, Edo State?
Well, Dapo, we just left the State Secretariat where the youth, let's say the youth arm of the party have taken over the State Secretariat. Now, we're at the Secretariat on Friday. We arrived in the city on Thursday. We were there on Friday. And we saw a group of people there who were expecting the arrival of certain dignitaries who would come in and prepare for the primaries. One notable person we saw there was the party's state publicity, will I call him, officer, basically. We spoke to him that day, and he told us about the preparations. But of course, following all the drama that has happened, 3 candidates have been confirmed, victorious across different levels. There's been a lot of confusion now, and the youths have taken over the party secretariat. We went there to speak to those who we saw there, and on getting there, we saw that the former occupants of the secretariat are no longer there. It's filled with a lot of young men and women. Some of the office equipment, office furniture have been taken out of the building and now in the premises, and the youths are now in total control of the secretariat at the moment. Still in continuation of the drama that has been ongoing in the past 2-3 days.
Now, is there any form of leadership structure to this youth group in terms of names? Do they have a leader? And what are their demands precisely?
Yes, there is a leader of this group. He's, as I was told, he's the youth leader of the All Progressives Congress Party here in Edo State. He goes by the name of Tony Kabaka, quite a popular guy here. And beyond Edo State, as a matter of fact, amongst the politicians, amongst the youths, they quite know him. We're able to have an exclusive interview one-on-one with him. We'll probably have that ready in subsequent bulletins. He said that they were vehemently complaining about the fact that certain persons are disobeying the directives from the national level of the APC and trying to infuse their own persons into a position of power. That the person they want this time, Dennis Idahosa, who was announced winner by Senator Hope Uzodinma, is the rightful person who won the election, who they voted for, and who they want. He also, made reference to, what happened on Saturday, where journalists were gathered in an alternate place and where another winner was announced. He complained about that and said that they went there to, to scatter whatever operation was going there, if you remember that story from Saturday, and that the only person that we should hold on to as the rightful winner is Dennis Idahosa, who was announced by Senator Hope Uzodinma. He said any other person is not recognized. And now, what they're asking for now is that every other part of the party should, should be obedient to what the national level has said, that Dennis Idahosa is a youthful person, just about 43 years old. The youths have been clamoring for someone to represent their interests. Now they have that person. They don't want anybody to disrupt their smooth flow come the general elections.
Now, we understand, you said earlier that party officials, some of them that, of course, initially occupied the place have been displaced at the moment. Any idea where they could have gone to or where they are? And what is the situation right now across Edo State, particularly Benin City?
Well, Benin City is peaceful, it's calm. People are going about their regular businesses, their daily businesses. But I would say the business now has to do with the political class, basically, particularly those who are members of the All Progressives Congress at the moment. To answer your first question as well, now the party officials who were there initially, whom we spoke to, on Thursday and on Friday, of course, have vacated the building. We couldn't find any of them there at all. We're not sure where they've gone to. Some of them may have fled for safety, I believe, because some of them there were those who actually, were around when those names were being called, when those results were being announced on Saturday that eventually turned out to be false. So I want to believe that they fled the building, maybe fled the state, we don't know. But they were nowhere to be found as at the time we got to the state secretariat building.
All right, Bernard, stay safe, and of course, we will be in touch. Right, we'll go on a quick break. When we return, we have more stories. Stay with us. The Nigerian government has initiated the long-awaited payment of withheld salaries to members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities. Now, this development was confirmed by Professor Bolao Bolari, chairperson of ASU at the Federal University of Technology, Minna, on Monday. This move follows President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's approval in October 2023 to release 4 out of the 8 months withheld salaries owed to university academics. Now, the salaries were withheld during the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari, who implemented a no-work, no-pay policy in response to an 8-month strike by university-based unions in 2022. This development comes as a relief to many academics who have endured financial strain due to prolonged salary withholdings. Now, Nigeria and Brazil considering the possibility of establishing direct flight operations between their respective financial capitals of Lagos and Sao Paulo. Now, both countries also reaffirmed their commitment to deepening bilateral relations, mainly to increase the volume of trade and cooperation across solid mineral exploration, healthcare, and also agriculture. Now, this follows discussions between Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his Brazilian counterpart, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, on the sidelines of the 37th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, on Sunday. Nigeria and Brazil began diplomatic relations in the 1960s and have since collaborated in agriculture, education, energy, and trade. Let's also tell you that the Nigerian government has hit back at the opposition People's Democratic Party following its call for the resignation of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Minister of Information Mohammed Idris strongly rebuffed the PDP's demand for the president's resignation, questioning their credibility in solving the nation's problems. He noted that the call for resignation is nothing but a distraction, since they could not effect change during their own tenure. The PDP governors, led by Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed, recently likened Nigeria's trajectory under Tinubu as that of Venezuela, urging both the president and the ruling All Progressives Congress to step down if they cannot offer solutions. The Minister of Information maintained that the president will not be swayed by such demands, and he remains resolute and undeterred by the challenges facing the country. Now, former governor of Kwara State, Nigeria's North Central, Abdul Fattah Ahmed, was seen arriving at the Ilorin office of the anti-graft agency on Monday morning. It was gathered that he was invited by the EFCC and is currently answering questions as to how monies under his administration were spent. Ahmed was governor of the North Central State between 2011, that's May, and also May 2019, before he handed over to Governor Abdurrahman Abdurrazak. He was once squeezed in May 2021 by a crack team of operatives of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission headquarters in the Jabi area of Abuja, the nation's capital, in connection with alleged diversion of funds to the tune of about 9 billion naira from the coffers of the Kwara State government. Now, the prevalence of out-of-school children in Nigeria has become increasingly worrisome, especially as the number continues to rise despite interventions. Experts, however, charge the government at all levels, including states with huge numbers of out-of-school children, to put all hands on deck in providing necessary solutions and changing the narrative. Now, News Central's Omolola Ololade tells us more.
Globally, children are entitled to free and quality education. Yet, the number of out-of-school children in the world is alarming and on the rise. The rise is particularly evident in sub-Saharan Africa, with Nigeria at the epicenter. The 20 million out-of-school children in Nigeria, according to the Universal Basic Education Commission, include the girl child in northern Nigeria, boy child dropout in south and southeast regions, internally displaced and Almajiri children who are predominantly found in northern Nigeria. Despite interventions by the government at all levels and other relevant stakeholders to address the menace of out-of-school children, the number has continued to increase.
Our population is going to double by 2050. And so we're going to have over 400 million Nigerians. And to your point, if we continue at this pace, we're also going to double the number of out-of-school children. In fact, not only the out-of-school children, but even those who are in school.
While the urgency of addressing the challenge of out-of-school children requires much more than the 68 billion naira lifeline under UBEC, funding remains a crucial part of reversing the ugly trend.
This is also telling you that whether it's 10 or 20 million, it's a huge issue that needs a lot of funding. But it's beyond funding. What are the strategies that we can deploy? Then one thing is clear, we cannot build enough schools fast enough because every year more children come into the equation. Children are born every day, every minute. So every year, children become of school-going age and there are no schools. So one thing is clear that we don't have enough schools in the country.
It's called out-of-school children, right? Not out-of-school youths or adults. So I feel most of the funding should come for basic education, which is primary school level and the junior secondary school level.
Beyond funding, deploying technology to address the problem of out-of-school children will make a huge difference, according to experts.
We have an issue of a lack out of school children. Why haven't we deployed technology in the way that we did during that time to reach all these children to learn? Why haven't we deployed technology to gather the data to really identify, where are they? Where are the children who are not in school and how can we reach them?
The consensus is that education is the cornerstone of economic growth and national development of any nation. Hence the need for government to use its transformative power in shaping the future of the country. In Lagos, for News Central, Omolola Ololade.
Coming up on the news, African Union slammed for failure to prioritize security in the region. We have details of this story after the break. Conflicts in DRC and Sudan have resulted in huge displacements, with violence rising in the east of Congo. Despite international and regional initiatives, both countries remain unstable. Meanwhile, the 37th AU summit was criticized for failing to provide a meaningful security solution for the continent. Now, with 6 countries barred from the AU due to the undemocratic changes in leadership and economic blocs from the east and west, and also splitting. With these urgent challenges in the region, however, the subject for this year's summit was focused on education. Now, to discuss this, I am joined by political science fellow, University of South Africa, Edwin Yingi. Thank you so much for your time, Edwin.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much for having me.
Now, how does the lack of consensus among AU member states impact the organization's ability to respond to peace and security challenges?
Okay, thank you for your question. Maybe I would start by giving a bit of a background of the just concluded 37 AU summit. This summit comes at a time when the African continent is fraught with a number of conflicts. There's a conflict going on in Cabo Delgado in Mozambique. There's another conflict in the eastern DRC, another conflict in Sudan. And these conflicts come at a time when the AU had actually proposed in 2016 that it would end or would silence all guns by 2020. And we are coming at this summit where we are having these conflicts going on. And the AU seems not to be able to silence the guns. We have seen the violence in Sudan. We have seen the violence in eastern DRC. And we are having a lack of consensus among member states in the AU as to how they should deal with these conflicts. And this lack of consensus was displayed at the just concluded summit by a lack of commitment to end the conflicts in eastern DRC, to end the conflict in Sudan, in Cabo Delgado, and some other parts of the African region. So I would say this is impacting negatively on silencing the guns.
So are you saying that in terms of, I'm sorry to cut in, Edwin, but are you saying that in terms of priorities, the AU summit this time around didn't really get the priorities straight as to, not, focusing more on security, but instead they focused on other matters, particularly on education? Are you saying they did not have the priorities clearly spelled out, correctly?
Yeah, I would agree with you that the AU has not put their priorities right. There's no way education would prosper in an environment where conflict is happening and is displacing people with the kind of displacement we have witnessed in Sudan, we have witnessed in Cabo Delgado, we have witnessed in eastern DRC. There is no education that would prosper under such kind of circumstances. So the AU did not put their priorities right, because they should silence the guns, and silencing the guns would enable or would allow the socio-economic development where education comes into play. So it is the AU failing to put their priorities right in that case.
Now, let's, of course, look at the involvement of many of these African nations. We know that aside or part of the issues, on the front burner too has to do with the wave, recent trend of coup d'etats or power grabs happening, in some countries on the continent. Do you think this particular summit addressed that issue too?
I don't think that issue was addressed, though the AU made sure that some countries or some member states could not attend this summit, given what they call the unconstitutional change of governments. But this comes against a background of the double standards of the AU. Because we can't have an AU which is silent when there is a violation of human rights. We can't have an AU which is silent when the political elites are siphoning their countries, are looting their countries, and only have an AU that wakes up when there is a coup d'etat in a given country, when there is a removal of the government by the military. So we are having an AU which is double standards. And these double standards are contributing to some of the failures of the AU we see. They are failing to deal with coup d'etats. They are failing to deal with the violation of human rights. And in some cases, these coup d'etats, we see the general citizens embracing them and embracing the military for removing rulers who have been suppressing and who have been violating the rights of citizens.
All right, thank you so much for your time, Edwin Yingi, of course, a political science fellow at the University of South Africa. Once again, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, now, as South Africa faces economic challenges and a growing divide between the rich and the poor, South African Federation of Trade Unions is planning a protest against Finance Minister, that's Enoch's plan to cut budgets in various government departments ahead of his medium-term budget policy statement on Wednesday. The budget has been prepared against the backdrop of weaker than expected global and domestic growth, which has slowed revenue growth and widened the budget deficit, ongoing losses by the municipalities and also state-owned enterprises such as Transnet and Eskom with higher borrowing cost as a result of elevated risk premium and tighter global monetary conditions. Now, spokesperson, South African Federation of Trade Unions, that's Trevor Shaku, joins us from Gauteng to discuss more on this. Thank you for your time, Trevor.
Thanks for having us.
All right, now, let's start off with this. What can you tell us about the planned protest and what specific impact do the budget cuts have on the workers and their families?
So the protest is arranged to take place from 12 o'clock on Wednesday, marching from one assembly point to where the budget speech will be taking place. So that is insofar as the march is concerned. We have, of course, arranged this budget march with other organizations of the working class, different formations of the working class in the communities, student formations, and other trade unions. Now, the impact of the budget on the working class is problematic, and we have said this repeatedly. We have referred to the fact that cuts on budgets to public institutions such as schools, clinics, and hospitals, cuts to local government, cuts to higher education institutions, and cuts to state-owned enterprises have negative ripple effects, which also have an effect, or rather negative impact, on the economy itself. Now, just for instance, looking at the public institutions, when the budget cuts are administered, what we experience is that there's an infrastructure backlog that occurs from infrastructure backlog in schools to infrastructure backlog in clinics and hospitals, where we've had pregnant women having to lie on the floor because there are no beds, where we've had pregnant women who are lying on the corridors of hospitals because midwifery wards are full to capacity. Now, this is just the impact of infrastructure in that particular area. But if you go into education, again, you have the same problem where out of 23,000 schools, you have more than 16,000 of them without library. You have more than 17,000 of them without natural science laboratories. You have many schools without internet connection, without computer labs where learners can be able to practice. So these are the impacts of the cuts. We are saying not only is it on infrastructure, but it is also the impact on the headcount in the public service. So all right,
I'm sorry to cut in here. I'm sorry to cut in here, Trevor, but you made a statement. You said the impact of the budget cuts on the working class is problematic. In fact, that was your opening statement. My question to you is, how problematic is this impact? And what are the key messages or demands that the SAFTU wants to highlight during the match?
Sure. So the manifestation of the budget cuts in concrete terms that I was trying to explain in terms of referring to infrastructure is actually what I was going to be showing at the later stage, that this is how the working class is impacted. So let me just maybe quickly and in summary touch on all of them. So when there is lack of infrastructure, it means that the working class, who are the recipients of the services in public institutions, are also suffering because they cannot be able to be catered. The institutions are full to capacity, and as a result, those people looking for such services cannot be able to find them. If we look at the procurement of goods, say for instance, in clinics and hospitals, goods which should be procured would be pharmaceutical products. Now, if there's a shortage of pharmaceutical products as a result of the budget cuts, it means that our grannies, our children go to such particular institutions and do not get help. Quite often you get into a trauma ward and the only thing available there is a paracetamol, which cannot, of course, deal with trauma pains. The third thing is that when there is a cut of budget to the public service compensation bill, which causes the reduction in the headcount, what then happens is that you find long queues in hospitals, and you find also the learner to educator ratios in schools widening, and as a result, overcrowding, which also leads to these learners not being able to get quality education. So these are the problematic areas of how budget cuts impact on the working class. Now, the propositions from the South African Federation of Trade Unions, of course, is that the National Treasury must stop budget cuts. It must actually increase its spending on infrastructure grants. It must increase its spending on the procurement of goods for all public institutions. It must increase its spending on the public service compensation bill, so that not only are we able to cater for the increase of wages, but we're also able to cater for the expansion of the headcount in the public service, so that the public servant to population ratio is closed.
All right, thank you so much for your time, Trevor.
Thank you very much.
All right. Yulia Navalny, that's the widow of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, says she will press on with her husband's fight for a free Russia and called on supporters to battle President Vladimir Putin with greater fury than ever. Navalny's death robs Russia's disparate opposition of its most charismatic and courageous leader, as Putin prepares for an election that will keep him in power until at least 2030. In a 9-minute video message laced with rage, the 47-year-old widow said Putin killed her husband and in doing so had robbed her 2 children of a father. She said the only answer to such a crime was to continue her late husband's fight for a free and prosperous Russia. To discuss this, I am joined by News Central's international correspondent, Afua Achepong. Thank you so much for your time, and also let's get straight to it. Now, we understand that the latest on the investigation into Alexei Navalny's death, of course, has stirred reaction. Let's know what's the latest right now.
Well, the latest is that Yulia Navalny, who you saw there, who released that really emotional video statement this morning, and Alexei Navalny's mother have not yet been able to recover Alexei Navalny's body. Now, he died in that prison that's near the Arctic Circle, a very harsh prison that he died in. His body has been taken to the morgue, and Yulia Navalny saying that authorities are stalling to buy more time because he has been poisoned by Novichok, and they are waiting for the Novichok to leave his system. And that is why they have been stalled from collecting his body. They haven't been able to make any funeral arrangements or arrange a burial at the moment. Now, Russia, in response to that, have said that there have been no results yet in the post-mortem of Alexei Navalny's body, saying that the investigation is being conducted in accordance with Russian law. He also took that time to defend President Vladimir Putin against accusations that he feels have been leveled against him by the West that he was involved in Navalny's death. And they said, we consider it absolutely unacceptable to make such, well, frankly, obnoxious statements. These statements, of course, cannot cause any damage to our head of state. He was pushed about Putin's reaction to the news of the death of Alexei Navalny, and the spokesperson said, I have nothing to add.
Now, let's, of course, talk about the actions that world leaders are considering taking against the Russian president, particularly in response to Navalny's death, and also given the fact that it appears like, a prominent opposition or some sort of resistance against Putin that we've seen in previous months. We know of course, the leader of the Wagner group who also died mysteriously. What do you think world leaders are considering as a response against Putin right now?
Well, the response from world leaders at the Munich Security Conference on Friday was very strong. The condemnation of Russia and their hand in Alexei Navalny's death. Now, speaking at a conference or a meeting of EU foreign ministers in Brussels this morning, the Lithuanian foreign minister said that he believes the death of Alexei Navalny is a horrible reminder that talks on sanctions against Moscow need to move ahead expeditiously. The German foreign minister has also added that she hopes the EU will decide on a 13th package of sanctions against Russia. Now, it seems to be that, yes, EU leaders, including the British Foreign Minister David Cameron, are content in calling for sanctions against Russia. We don't know what those may be. We don't know how effective those sanctions are as well against Moscow, against Russia. You know, we've seen clips of supermarkets still being fully stocked, that Russia can pretty much run as well as it can do without these sanctions leveled against them. But EU foreign ministers at a meeting in Brussels this morning calling for further sanctions against Russia.
Now, what has been the response on the streets of Russia to Navalny's death? And also, what does this also portend for the upcoming elections?
Well, there has been a bit of a response on the streets for Russia. Now, let's remember that the context of which people are protesting in, if they can, is of a very harsh crackdown against any dissent against Vladimir Putin. So over the weekend, we had 90 people who have been punished in Moscow for protesting against Alexei Navalny's death. 20 people have been sentenced to various amounts of prison time and have been fined 10,000 rubles, which is about £85. 63 people in St. Petersburg were sentenced to prison and received fines as well. And this was just hours after the death of Alexei Navalny, where the Russian prosecutor's office advised against any mass protests and any mass gatherings. So at a total, about 350 people across 30 cities across Russia have been detained for protesting against the death of Alexei Navalny. In terms of what this means for the upcoming election, well, it's one party, one president. It's clear that Vladimir Putin will win, and that will carry on until he is no longer with us.
Interesting times, Afua. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And in business, the reforms in Nigeria's fiscal management is still ongoing. The Central Bank of Nigeria last week announced that cash payment for personal and business travel allowances, that's the PTA and BTA, would no longer be allowed. The directive was conveyed in a circular addressed to all authorized banks, signed by Hassan Mahmood, that's the director of the Trade and Exchange Department. Dr. Josh Bamfo, partner and head of the Transfer Pricing Services Practice, Anderson in Nigeria, evaluated the short-time outcome of these reforms.
Measures, this travel allowance issue is just a measure to improve transparency and accountability. But I think the bigger question is whether the shift from a more fixed exchange rate regime under the previous administration versus the more flexible exchange rate regime that this current administration is implementing, which of these two actually is inuring to our benefit, both in the short term, what we are seeing right now, as well as in the long term. And what you will see if you are focused on, the exchange rate stability, then there's a tendency for you to think that maybe the measures that the Central Bank of Nigeria is implementing right now.
And that's a wrap on the news at this time. But before we go, another look at some of our top stories. We told you that youths have protested the high cost of living in Oyo State, Nigeria. APC youths have taken over the state party secretariat after governorship primaries. We also told you that the African Union has been slammed for failure to prioritize security in the region. Don't forget to, of course, send in your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422 Star Times, channel 274, Apple TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Dapo at Digby.